We'll resume our meeting. The next item is, as a result of our president's retirement, that opened up the vice president's slot, and we need to have a vice president of the board. So at this one time, I would open up for nominations for vice president.
I would nominate Donna Breckles. Donna, sorry.
Whoa, where did that come from?
We go back way too far, way too late. I can't even think of your last name, Beard.
Try Barry.
Sorry, I know, sorry. I know, sorry. I'm tired. I'm blessed. Anyway,
Okay, I have a nomination for Donna. Any other nominations?
I nominate Tim.
Okay, do we have a nomination for Tim? Do we have any other nominations? If not, close the nomination. Inspector Bell.
yeah.
Okay, we'll do a ballot, and we'll ask Jeff, our illustrious accountant, to count all 8 ballots.
Can you do that? Said no, you're out of a job. Big job.
Don't need to take your shoes off. So the way this is going to work, if somebody gets 5 votes, it's over. If somebody gets 4 votes, we get to do it again. I don't know, we'll have to think about that. We keep getting time to make so much money.
Yeah.
Ken? Sounds like Donna and I will abstain from the vote, so maybe you can work your math out from there.
That's,
If you choose to, you certainly don't need to. It's up to you.
I make me feel a lot better.
All right, Donna? Should abstain? All right. So that leaves 5.
Late.
Okay, that's okay.
Well, that leaves 6. I'm not counting.
You need to take your shoes off too.
So 4 is the magic number.
It is a tie.
Okay, do either of you care to make a campaign speech?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Here, pass out ballots again. I didn't think this was going to take long.
Donna?
Yeah, we can do that.
Mr. President, would you consider a toss of a coin as a?
Well, maybe after another 1 or 2. We'll see how it goes. Okay, go ahead.
Oh. Yeah, but that's.
I think we should too. Looks like another tie.
Stubborn bunch.
Make it a good claim.
They give out a double set of coin.
Impartial observer come up with a coin.
We got the card up there.
Hang on a second there.
I should consider.
We We do have policy
We
on,
do have policy.
On replacing a-
Yeah, we do not have policy on this scenario with a board officer position. We have policy for when we're replacing a vacant board seat. If there's more than two, or if there's two or more tie votes, it's the board president that's the tiebreaker. And I don't, it's on it, it's about a different topic, so, you know, I don't know if the board would want to adopt that same process for this, or if you see it as different in your eyes.
I think that's a better idea than money, but
thank you. I just like Donna, if you accept it.
Sure. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you both. Congratulations. All right, the next item on the agenda is discussion, I'm sorry, that's where we just went. Not do that again. Curriculum, committee reports, curriculum. Sue, you care to report on the July 8th meeting last Thursday?
No, I've got that. Well, everybody got the. So. We have that. You want to go into the discussion and action or?
No, I mean, you'll report on the meeting itself.
I'm not sure what to say other than there were a lot of people there and a lot of opinions shared that we haven't.
Or Sue, you care to comment on
You want to say anything?
Sure, I think a lot of the points of the July 8th curriculum committee meeting were brought up tonight in various respects regarding cultural competence. The purpose of the meeting was to revisit the professional, voluntary professional development that we engaged in this school year. Laura Myra gave a brief summary as to why the committee was revisiting the topic as a result of some of the commentary from the June board meeting. Board members felt that there was a good opportunity to share the information with the entire board as a result of a meeting that took place with some of the board members previous to that. I gave some basis and background for the discussion on cultural competence learning in 2021. Explained that after receiving the petition that's been mentioned a few times this evening, we took some action by taking a look at our own curriculum. One of the petitioners, the argument was being made by petitioners that curriculum didn't entail enough culture or looked at race, and so we conducted a curriculum audit of which that was presented and discussed. It was presented on September 9th and then discussed as part of the July 8th meeting. Mr. Bolt, our Director of Student Services, explained some background behind the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and that was identified this evening, and some of the results of that survey that prompted us to want to understand a little bit more about what makes students comfortable at Arrowhead. Mr. Bolt also explained a little bit about the voluntary study and discussion group with about 20 faculty members that we met a few times. I think it was 5 times total. We reviewed some of the resources that were presented and discussed as part of that, as part of those sessions. We identified some of the items for future focus, potentially work on staff members' self-awareness and biases, look at data from the YRBS next year on how students feel about school, remind ourselves to be mindful of minority populations, do not push or force staff in anything they feel uncomfortable with, and focus on using representation of positive minority contributions and stories where it fits. The committee's consensus was for administration to move forward with these areas of focus plan. The committee also agreed to bring the topic of prohibiting the teaching of critical race theory to the school board for a vote to help clear up misunderstandings. We also have action tonight to look at a field trip that our Broadway company students and our directors wish to take to Disney in February of 2022.
Thank you. Do you have any questions or comments on the curriculum committee? If not, you it was brought up at the curriculum committee meeting that Amy had suggested that they vote be taken on critical race theory. Do we still want to do that, or is there a motion to that effect, dealing with critical race theory?
I'll make a motion to take a vote on it.
Well, I think we need the motion first.
Motion on the actual wording here. Okay, I'd like to make a motion for Arrowhead High School will not teach critical race theory as it pertains to dividing students in groups of oppressed or oppressors. It will not directly teach students to think that they should have negative feelings about their or others' gender, race, or ancestry.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
I just want to say I'd like to thank all the people and those who left for coming. It's very inspiring to see a lot of you turn out. And actually, I got a 5-page speech, which I'm not going to read for the sake of brevity. It's very encouraging to continue to see parents of AHS students and or the taxpaying community and concerned citizens show a real interest in board proceedings and activities. And then I just had a brief history of CRT because a lot of us seem not to know what it was. So I did some research and found it originated in Germany in 1937, progressed here into the academic world. It does focus on Marxism. It divides people in society into classes of oppressed and oppressors. It's just, to me, it's very scary stuff. The whole thing, critical theory, adherents and designers admit their true intent of the oppressors and the oppressed. Not equality under the law, not civil rights, not freedom, liberty, and justice for all, not a better life for racial minorities. Critical theorists admit their intent is to use racial minorities as a vanguard for a Marxist revolution. And that birthed critical race theory. The critical theory was birthed critical race theory. So I feel that a lot of Americans really don't understand what CRT is all about and how it came into being. But CRT is rooted in Marxism, and even the Encyclopedia Britannica defines such, which I found interesting. I'll just skip over some of this, but what's scary is, like, people talked about the language, and when you control the language, that's how you can manipulate the masses. And this is from Christopher Rufal. He's the founder and director of Battlefront, the Public Policy Research Center. There are a series of euphemisms employed by its CRT supporters to describe critical race theory, including equity, social justice, diversity and inclusion, and culturally responsive teaching. Critical race theorists, masters of language construction, realize that neo-Marxism would be a hard sell. Equity, on the other hand, sounds non-threatening and is easily confused with the American principle of equality. But the distinction is valued and important. Indeed, equality, the principle proclaimed in the Declaration of Independence, is explicitly rejected by critical race theorists. To them, equality represents mere non-discrimination and provides camouflage for white supremacy, patriarchy, and oppression. In contrast to equality, equity as defined and promoted by critical race theorists is little more than reformulated Marxism. So there were other things I learned about it, and to me, it's like a red flag, no pun intended, but we do need to be careful going forward. And I also went on, I wanted to say, I do appreciate the opportunity to give a brief lesson on the background of CRT and how it relates to society in general. I wish to thank Laura Myra, Sue Cassetta, and Anna Bolt for their work on reviewing exactly what, if any, aspects of CRT are being presented to our student body. I believe after a thorough investigation and review, such is not the case. CRT is not being taught to our students. However, as some know, there were 5 workshops, discussions given to teacher leaders that were completely voluntary in regards to culture of competence. After several months, the conclusion of such workshops is the following. And then we did the 5 bullet points that have been presented before about what the teachers could focus on, biases and things like that. None of the buzzwords of cultural competence or CRT are found in them. And I agree with the points that the teachers would focus on. I also agree with taking a vote tonight to state that Arrowhead Union High School will not teach critical race theory as defined to our students. I also wish to give parents of students an assignment. I am on a board of 9. I personally find it impossible to know exactly what goes on in each classroom every period of every school day, as I am sure my fellow 8 board members would agree. Parents are the most important advocates for their children. Please, 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 going forward, if you haven't done so already, ask questions about your children's class activities and experiences. If an assignment or activity has made you or your child feel uncomfortable or does not seem appropriate, make your voices heard. The very first step is to reach out to your child's teacher. Most questions or concerns can be resolved at that level. Should that lead further questions, contact the school superintendent. The school board is the last resort. In closing, I do believe that our staff is second to none. We provide an excellent education, and we will continue to do so with the vote tonight against indoctrination, including anti-American and pro-Marxist ideals, which I believe critical race theory is all about. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I would like to table this so that we can go through it one more time in a curriculum meeting to find the right verbiage. I have to agree with Dave Landis out there. One of his things that he mentioned is, why are we declaring that we're teaching something that we're not teaching? So I'm not so sure that I really like the wording of all of this, and I tend to wonder if we got together once again, if we can find something that's more appropriate and easier to understand.
I agree with Donna on that.
So you're moving to table and you're seconding it?
Yes, I think this requires a clearer and better wording of this resolution. And I would like to discuss it at either a curriculum or policy meeting so that we can more accurately define what it is we're talking about. I think in this room, we are much closer in our opinions to one another than maybe we all recognize. I heard a lot of people say we need to be more sensitive. We need to have empathy for one another. We need to be kind to one another. There's a reference to the mural in the back here. Amen. I don't think anybody is opposed to that. I also heard people say we don't want a divisive theory or divisive concepts or divisive teachings brought into the school. Amen. And I'm all for that. But I don't know that, and so I think we can do both of these things. I don't think this is a mutually exclusive situation. We certainly can be sensitive and empathetic to people. We certainly can reject a divisive ideology coming into the school. So, but I think this particular motion doesn't address that adequately. So I would like to table it as well.
Well, Donnie, you beat me to it because I was going to move the table. My reason being is we're a policy-driven organization, policy-driven and policy-based organization. And suddenly we're trying to pass a motion or a statement that sets policy for the school. And I really believe, and I agree with you, Craig. I think you need better vetting, better terminology. This all happened, and this all came up with your motion or your suggestion for motion of the curriculum meeting a week ago today. And within about 6 hours, or maybe less than that, we had a reconstituted, more refined motion for this. And I think this is important enough that this needs to go back, should go back to policy and more research on, more definition about what we're looking at and what we're against, or what we're asking not to be going on in the classroom. I think we also have to be very careful of the fact that there are some things like the psychology, like advanced placement psychology class talks about this. So if we ban teaching it, we gotta be careful how we word that. It wouldn't be a violation of what we're doing or what we're required to do from our students for AP psychology, for Pete's sakes, which would put them at a disadvantage when it comes to taking the AP psychology exam. I'm 100% agreeing with the way Amy as far as what we're attempting to do here. I just think it needs to be fleshed out. So with that having been said, all those in favor of tabling it and sending it back to, or sending it to curriculum, or to policy, rather, I'm sorry.
You know, a point of order, Mr. President.
I'm sorry?
Are you permitted to have a motion to table on the basis of the motion in the second stand?
Yes, in fact, that's when you do table something, is after there's a motion made. That's the, and I looked this up today. That's the intent of the motion to table, is to table a motion that, rather than bring it to the vote.
So there's a motion to vote on it and a motion to table.
No, there's a motion. We have two motions. First motion is to approve the resolution, if you will, that Amy had stated with a second. The second was to table the motion. So the first one to be voted on is the motion to table. If that passes, it goes back, it goes to policy for further refinement and definition. If not, that fails, then we vote on the motion to approve the resolution. Everybody understand the? So on the motion to table the motion, all those in favor for tabling the motion and having to go back, go to policy, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So a show of hands. All those in favor say aye. Motion passed. So we'll take that back to, take it to policy. When's your next policy?
We don't have one scheduled
We have it
right now, but
You'd have to speak to
well,
the
the next
chairman.
board meeting is the annual meeting, August 18th, where we don't have a regular agenda.
Rather
So
short.
we're talking a September board meeting for a vote.
It should also give us time to actually address this one.
You didn't have a policy meeting.
So we can have a policy meeting in August.
In August, anytime, it doesn't have to be with.
Right.
Okay. All right. The next meeting date determined.
So we have, are we gonna take an action on the trip?
Oh, yes,
Right.
Please.
yes.
We did all, we don't, I think almost everybody is there, so you heard about the trip coming up for Broadway Company next spring. I'm just, you know, so I don't- Okay. Okay. So you guys keep talking. Yeah, I don't carry on the first.
I must have an old agenda because mine's not on there. Okay. Thank you, Sue. Okay. Sue, do you care to, Sue or Sue care to discuss the proposal for the Broadway County trip?
I mean, what's up? Everybody there?
Do we need to discuss it?
Tim wasn't. I mean, I can start. I mean, it's a 4-day trip for the Broadway Company to Disney. Kind of the first in a while now. We can finally get back to doing trips. But they'll work with directors that, you know, the musician, everything that Disney is out now.
Yep.
But you know, it won't just be one little day. They work with all kinds of people.
All right, I missed.
So they're excited. I'm excited. Our staff wants to do it after all that we've all been through. So we hope that we go.
We have a motion to approve.
I will.
Second.
We have a motion and seconded to approve the trip to Disney. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Carried. Next meeting to be determined.
Be determined.
All
And
right.
it'll probably be after whatever you guys do.
Finance and legislation. Okay.
there's not much to say right now. There will be an annual meeting in August. Jeff, maybe you can give us a very brief update on where we stand with the budget.
Yeah, so we have a state approved budget now. It came in with a 0 per pupil increase on the revenue limit. We had in our initial budget that we brought back to April was $150 increase. Now remember, we sit in a situation on the revenue limit where we have to dig ourselves out of the declining enrollment exemption before we actually see any new revenue to work with. So I purposely put it at 150. So when we got 0, it didn't change the amount of revenue that we have to work with. So we've managed our expenditures down to that revenue level already. So that's we're bringing a balanced budget to the annual meeting, similar to the one you saw in April and approved.
Jeff, do we know anything about that, from the, was it 65 million from the Joint Finance Committee? Do we know any of those numbers yet?
We only know the Title I portion of that. So for ESSER 3, ESSER 1, we know the 40,000 we received. It's been ESSER 2 was $105,800 and some dollars. And ESSER 3, I don't have a number on that. I want to say it was 300,000 range with our initial allocation. So there's 2 other pieces, one for ESSER 2, another piece for ESSER 2, and another piece for ESSER 3. The ESSER 2 is going to be based on the amount of instructional minutes that students attended school here in the building in front of a teacher. And ESSER 3 is based on whether we had at least 50% of instructional minutes in school and in person. So we'll for sure meet ESSER 3. We're going to do very well in ESSER 2, according to ours, because we're open all year long. So, but we don't get to count those kids that chose to go virtual. Those are not counted in our instructional minutes, even though we're open. So that calculation still needs to be done.
Even regular absences. So remember me telling you how we had something like 2,800 close contact quarantines before we finally get rid of quarantine?
Also, they were.
So 2,800 times the first part of the year were 14-day quarantines and then 10-day quarantines. None of that will count for in-person instruction, even though instruction continued. So, ouch.
There you go. So the budget didn't turn out well, really. The state hasn't put any additional money or allowed schools any additional money to work with than what was in the previous budget.
It's not as a lot was done.
It sounds like it, but it's not really, because it's 0 per pupil on the revenue limit. That's no increase. And the per pupil categorical aid, which is big aid for us now, stayed at $742 per student. So they were talking about an increase in that, a little bit of an increase, $8, but they even brought that back down. So really, there's no change in the revenue limit portion, which is what the amount of money that we're really allowed to operate with. The change was in the amount of state aid. So realistically, we should see a decrease in property taxes if that actually comes to fruition on the state aid side. So more to come on that, but no additional dollars to work with. So we have to keep those expenditures right where they were last year. And that's what we built our budget on. Fortunately, we had a low CPI to help us out with that. So we were able to keep salary increases at a smaller level, and our health insurance came in at a 0 increase. Those are 2 big numbers that I'm worried about for next year, because CPI is running about 3.5% to 4% right now, and the projection is showing for a year from now compared to the 1.23 that we had this year. So that's a number that's going to really impact salaries potentially. And then the health insurance, after a 0 increase, we usually don't get another 0, but we'll see. Hopefully we can keep that in check. But so we will bring the budget approved in April to the annual meeting. Hopefully this many people will show up at that meeting and listen to the budget presentation.
Not likely, but okay. Any potential action on budget modifications?
So there There's no need for it.
And are we not having a meeting beforehand like we often do?
I presume we'll have a meeting
Are we
about
having our
6
meeting
o'clock
before?
then.
We
Doesn't
won't need
say it.
to, if we have our August 11th meeting to elect, not to elect, but to interview and appoint a new board member. And then any items necessary, like perhaps a land sale or anything else, can be on that August 11th meeting,
We're having the
which
11th.
means on the 18th,
And then
we can begin at 7 PM with a regular
We have to.
budget hearing and annual meeting.
Okay.
Unless someone would like to add another meeting on
No.
the 18th.
Just wanted to get straight, because so often we've had one back before.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to ask.
This one I counts too.
This is like 5.
Okay, next meeting for the finance to be determined. All right, building and grounds, we did not have a meeting, lack of items to discuss. So our next meeting will be August 4th at 7 AM. Personnel, same thing, next meeting will be to be determined. There's nothing on the dock at this point. That probably won't occur until probably September, right? At this point. Policy.
Well, we just
You
confirmed
got
it's gonna
something
be
now.
on August 19th. The next policy, and then we'll discuss this, and then we can take it to the board on September 8th.
August 19th. 7 AM. Thank you. WSB, I don't have anything. Do you, Tim?
No,
CISA?
No, I'm really not a CSEP trip. We don't have one. I mean, we don't need one because another person that's taking this out possibly do something.
Okay.
It's not just for Bureau, the board, the CISA board is full. Because they have to.
Okay. Okay, employee transactions, resignations and retirements, we do have a resignation. We have a motion for acceptance.
I move that we accept the resignation.
Move the second with the resignation. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contracts and letters of appointment, we have a very lengthy group just going into all the basically all the coaches and all the co-curricular leaders and that kind of stuff. You had a chance to look at that. We have a motion to approve that.
Is there any, was it flat or any increases from the prior season? No, no increase. No, flat on the same.
Okay, move to approve the letter of appointment. We have a second? And second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we have several annual type things that we need to approve. First one is approval of academic standards. We're looking for approval of the following motion. The Arrowhead Union High School District's academic standards, the subject areas required in Wisconsin have been developed and modified over the years through a blending of Wisconsin academic standards, Common Core state standards, locally developed standards, and academic standards recommended by reputable national organizations. The identified curricular areas. These standards shall be in effect during the 2021 school year. Information regarding these standards shall be posted on the district website for the first day of school. We have a motion. Move and second to approve the academic standards, state of academic standards. Any discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, our next one is the seclusion and restraint report. I'd like to address that.
I can.
Okay, Adam.
The report, yearly report on the amount of students that were either secluded or restrained. We had one incident, one student, and the student with a disability, and the student was restrained by the Waukesha County Sheriff's Office.
And I see that's the same as it has been for.
Maybe we had a little uptick last than the year prior, but
Yeah.
usually pretty low.
We have a motion to accept the seclusion restraint report.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, we have the annual review of random drug testing report. I don't forget. Or,
No, this is a report full of zeros because this past year during COVID, we did not conduct annual or random drug testing. With the reason being, we had some of our students at home that are virtual, some of our students at home at school, and to just choose at school students to be tested would be deemed discriminatory because you're leaving out virtual students who maybe couldn't come to campus. Our purpose of random drug testing is to be proactively making sure kids don't use drugs. And we didn't want students to figure out, oh, I won't be drug tested if I'm learning virtually. Hooray. So we put all of it on hold for 1 year, and we'll be back in person full force next year with all students and some random drug testing, which is only for students that partake in co-curriculars or on-campus parking. That will start up again. By law, we're not allowed to randomly drug test any and all students, our general population, because school is, there's an obligation to be in school. And the law says we can't randomly drug test all kids. At Arrowhead, we think that all kids matter and we want all kids as safe as possible. So we can do random drug testing with students in voluntary programs. So anyone that participates in co-curriculars, that's voluntary. The other thing is if you buy a parking pass, that's voluntary. You don't have to do that. So it's trying to throw out a wide net, but still stay legal. It seems a little odd, but that's our rationale.
any idea when you take all the students involved in co-curricular activities, athletics, et cetera, and those that buy parking passes, what percentage of the student population that way goes?
My guess would be at least 85%, maybe higher. Because our co-curricular involvement,
Very high.
right. I mean, it's probably 98%, so my 85% or higher is, that's gotta count for almost all students,
Well,
between parking and co-curriculars.
students in South aren't very, so.
Yeah.
Please vote.
But I don't recall the suspension of drug testing being an agenda item before. Is that something that we voted on?
We talked about it in the policy committee. And it was after I checked with legal counsel, who said, you're walking a dangerous line if you're only going to drug test students who are in school in person and leave out the virtual students. We didn't feel like there was a way we could say virtual students come into school if some of them couldn't because of safety factors.
I mean, I feel like we're being asked to vote on something. You need our approval, but we're coming to you after the fact to get it.
Well, this motion is just for policy. It's an annual review
Right.
of the data.
Required by statute. Yeah.
Right, so it's not by statute because not all schools do this. It's by our own policy about random drug testing that I'm to bring a report to the board for the board to review, and then we usually do it as a motion to accept. So you'd be accepting the report of zeros.
Accept the non-reported report.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to accept the random drug testing report. Oh, do we have one already? Yeah, we need a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So move and second to accept the random drug testing report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried.
No,
No. Okay. Next one is the annual action to accept the social, school safety drill report. We're required by year, by, you know, to, well, I'll let you explain it.
Sure, state statute tells schools that we must have safety drills every month, and safety drills are comprised of fire drills, tornado drills, and intruder safety drills. And so the report you have is for both North Campus and South Campus. These also get turned into the fire department. And we keep them on record, so you'll be able to see that we've held all of our drills as we should. Incidentally, next year is when our school safety plan should be brought to the board in closed session for review and then adopted. Every 3 years by law, we do that as an administrative team, our safety team that includes our SRO officer and others. We review it every single year and update, but it comes to the board every 3 years. So next year, not only will we have this basic annual report, but our big 80-page school safety plan as well.
Do we have a motion for acceptance?
So
Move and second to accept the school safety report. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed? Carried. All right, annually, we also have to renew our membership in Wisconsin WIA. So we need to do that for 2021-22 school year. The other aspect of that is if we opt not to, then we are banned from participating in the WIA and WIA athletic activities for 2 years. Or
I think it's 4 years.
4 years? Oh, 4 years, that's right. No. And I have some problems with WIA, but it's not them, it's national law or federal law. So we have a motion to accept the continuation of participation in WIA. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to continue participation in the WIA for the 2021-2022 school year. Any further discussion?
Yes, please. Ken. Is this any different than every other year? I mean, I don't remember ever seeing a 4-year ban on participation. We didn't.
I think
Is
that's
this a
been the
different-
same. In past years, the actual document to sign, it says signed by either the school board or the designee. And when I looked back when I started, it was always the superintendent. So the last 5 years, I signed. This time around, I actually wanted to bring it for the board because personally, I feel like it's a commitment that the board should vote on. And secondly, because we are making a change, Arrowhead offers 30 athletic programs. I think we have more co-curricular athletic programs in our high school than any other high school in the state. And in fact, if Joe Reutemann of the city is right, we offer more sports than even colleges in Wisconsin, with the exception of Madison. And we are actually adding another sport. So the WIAA is now going to have boys wrestling and girls wrestling. Before, wrestling had been wrestling, just like football is football. Girls or boys can participate in football. Girls or boys can participate in wrestling. And now wrestling is being divided out by the WIAA, so we would plan to offer both boys and girls wrestling. So we'll be offering 31 sports in my counting correctly. So I thought it was worth bringing forward so the board knows that. And personally, I feel like it's a good thing for the board to vote on every year versus just me signing off as superintendent.
So the WIA, when you require masks for any sport,
Not that I'm aware of, but I don't know if they put out maybe guidance. mean, most everything is, because vaccinations are accessible to everyone over 12 years old, then it's choice.
But stuff is gonna come up, like in the next couple weeks. Football will start, like,
Sure, camps start.
so I mean, if they're gonna do it,
Right.
better do it soon. Because sports are right around, literally, around the corner already. How's that happen?
And maybe it is out and they're not. I just haven't talked with Brian Mangan about it, our activities director. My hunch would be if they were requiring masks in any way, we would know about it because he would have said it's different than our school and how will we deal with this.
Any other discussion?
Because for the spring sports, they didn't have mask break, was it just indoor ones?
Just right, and the spring sports are almost all outside.
The fall sports.
And fall there's a mix. Volleyball is inside.
Basketball.
Basketball's fine.
Yeah.
All those in favor for continue with the WIA membership for 2021-2022 school year, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, discussion and action on the memo of understanding for the 2021-22 and 2022-2023. Those are hard to say. Dowsman Transportation Company provides our bus transportation.
Buses.
Yeah, every time we need
We
buses.
can't do
Not
without.
many of them will use buses.
No, we need buses. I can just get a little background.
Yeah.
This is for the last 2 years of the 5-year busing contract that we have with Dawson Transport. So in the initial contract, the rates were set, and then for subsequent years, it says no less than a 2% increase, no more than a 6% increase. We're looking at a 2.5% increase, and mostly in order for them to try to drive up driver wages so they can get bus drivers. They're struggling big time to get drivers. So anyone knows drivers or people that want to be a bus driver, they will train you and teach you and have you driving a bus this fall.
Jeff, do they have the ability to raise the rates based on fuel prices?
There is a fuel escalator in there, and it's, so we go by whatever the market price is. And so it adjusts up or down based on a dollar amount.
I thought there was something.
So yeah, every bill shows up either an adjustment up or down or fuel costs.
Annually, that's.
It's set in a contract here, base rate.
Do we have a motion to approve the memo of understanding for Green Arrowhead and Dawson Transport? Second, to approve the memo of understanding for the Green Arrowhead High School and Dawson Transport for the school years 2021-22 and 22-23. Any further discussion? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And I don't believe we have any donations this month, so no action here. Okay, we're going to be going into closed session. All right, you want to do that now, or do you want to?
Closed session.
I'm being moved away.
Choice of the board, do it now or do it the 11th?
11.
Yeah, some of us have to, I mean, I know some of you don't, but some of us have to work really early.
Yeah.
So then, do we have a motion for?
I know, I mean, that's what
I move to adjourn.
I'm just looking for Ray.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor for adjournment?
Aye.
Say aye. We've had a-
Okay, 6 years.
Oh, yeah, 6 years. Oh,
I know.